My sweet Mildred. In the faraway distance, one could hear the rumble of the artillery and the prep of machine gun fire. The elements were at their worst. Our landing craft was half filled with water. We used our helmets to throw it overboard, and I never thought we would make it. Some of the boats never reached the shore. It was a horrible sight. The word came, let's go. We didn't have a chance to fight back. We were dropped into the water over our heads. With a stream of lead coming at us, we were at the mercy of the Germans. I pulled myself together and sought a rifle, and around I went trying to find my outfit. Gracious Lord, what was left of them? Just 25 out of 160.
The words of the actor Bryan Cranston actually reading a letter written home by one of the soldiers of D-Day. The Normandy invasion 81 years ago today, and our annual visit with Carson Greene on that topic and on the topic of his uncle Silbert Greene, presented this morning by Marcus & Mack, voted best law firm and best personal injury lawyer 3 years in a row in the Best of Indiana County contest. Visit them online at marcusandmack.com. Carson, it's great to have you back with us today. We do this every year because, as you have always said, this is a day we cannot afford to forget.
Yes, thank you very much for having me back. Yes, I think it's a day that we want to remember that these brave warriors who died in World War II, the greatest generation, they died one by one by one. My case is a personal case because my uncle was one of those who died, but there were thousands of soldiers who died that day. But I want to make sure that we don't forget those folks who gave up their life. My uncle was 26 years old, a staff sergeant, an NCO. He was one of the leaders who hit the shores of Omaha Beach, Easy Red Beach, which later became Bloody Red Beach. He and his unit were the first to break through the German lines. And about this time, 81 years ago, he was killed. He and his unit hit the beach at 6:30 a.m., and an hour and a half later, he was shot by a sniper in a little town called Colville-sur-Mer, France. And as we speak today, there's a museum right where he died, and that's sort of how I got involved with the gentleman who built the museum. He found some of my uncle's equipment and did research and contacted me about 20 years ago to tell me the history of what happened to my uncle.
Your uncle, his helmet actually is in that museum with the bullet hole in it, the sniper that brought him down. 156,000 Allied soldiers hit the beaches in Normandy by the end of the day on D-Day, 81 years ago today. 4,000 Allied troops were killed by the German soldiers. At the time, the D-Day invasion was the largest naval, air, and land operation in history. Within a few days, 326,000 troops, more than 50,000 vehicles, and some 100,000 tons of equipment had landed, and it is referred to by many as the beginning of the end of World War II, but it was a long, long time coming, and it was a long, long time before that World War ended. And some of those veterans are still with us. As of last year, there were 66,000 still living, but every day that number gets smaller and smaller and smaller. People who survived and were veterans of the D-Day invasion. Carson, your story, personal as it is a reflection of the stories of thousands of people and thousands of families.
Absolutely. Yes, that's very interesting. Although mine is one single story, like I said, each one died one by one, and they all had families. I know in my family with my Uncle Silbert, he had 5 brothers, all boys, 6 boys, and my grandfather and grandmother died before he was killed. But anyway, 4 of those boys were in World War II at the same time, including my father, who was also wounded in Germany. So in my family, there were 4 in World War II. 1 was wounded and 1 was killed, and the other 2 survived.
It's an amazing family legacy, and families carry that burden with them even today.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they do, and it's interesting. Although I didn't get to know my uncle, I wasn't born until 1945. I still feel that that closeness and contact, especially when this gentleman in Normandy, the owner of the museum, took the time to do the research. And how that came about was this man built this museum, and one day a farmer who lived next door walked into his museum and said, "I want to give you this helmet." And it was a helmet. It was an NCO's helmet. It had a white stripe on the back. And so the owner did research, and he found out that my uncle was the only NCO in Company G, 16th Infantry, Big Red 1. Mm-hmm. And that's the unit where Captain Dawson was in charge, and he screamed to his soldiers while they were hitting the beach, there are two kinds of men on this beach, dead ones and the ones who are going to die unless you get off this beach. So that's a famous quote by Captain, and my uncle happened to be part of that. And he and 12 other men were killed by a sniper. When they moved into Colville-sur-Mer, a sniper was there, and the Germans were keeping the snipers there to pick off the soldiers as they came in from the beach. And he was one of those shot through the helmet.
Colville-sur-Mer has an enormous military cemetery where the dead from the battle are interred. Your uncle was actually not buried there, though, because he did manage to survive long enough to be taken back to England for treatment, where he passed away.
That's correct. That's one thing about the war. They got those soldiers back to England pretty quickly. And he was shot and survived, and he was taken to England, and he died there on D-Day. And he's buried at the American cemetery in Colville, in Cambridge, England. And so it's interesting, when I contacted the cemetery at Cambridge, England, about my uncle, I wanted to get a picture of his tombstone. So they sent me this nice letter and a picture of the tombstone. And they said, "You note that on the white tombstone, there's like a dark, in the engraving of his name and a unit." He said, "That is sand from Omaha Beach, Easy Red Beach." Mm-hmm. He said he deserves to have that in his tombstone.
How about that?
That was quite touchy.
Yeah. And it's interesting to me the circumstances of his death, because he actually got off the beach. He actually got inland.
Yes.
And yes. Probably a lot of the soldiers in his unit and in similar units around France thought, finally we get away from the murderous beaches and we can, here's a nice little peaceful town we'll walk into. But that's where the snipers were set up.
Exactly. That's a very good point. I think they thought they were home free by the time they got to this beautiful town, but the snipers were there in the trees. As a matter of fact, the owner of the museum tells me that he can show me the tree where the sniper was located. Oh, yeah. This tree is still there, according to this owner, Pierre Goslin, in Normandy, France. But if I could tell you a story about Malcolm Appleman.
Absolutely.
The owner of the museum sent me a copy or a picture of my uncle and this other soldier together a week before they left England to go to Normandy. And they both were killed. They both were staff sergeants. And his name was Malcolm Appleman. So when I received this, I started doing some research on Malcolm Appleman. Now, I'm from West Virginia, didn't have any relatives up here. I was transferred up here with my company. But anyway, I looked him up, and I found out that Malcolm Appleman was from Johnstown, Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And is buried in Johnstown at the large cemetery down there. So I go every year and put the flag on his grave. Here's a man, a soldier, who died with my uncle, same day, same unit. And I'm living 35 miles from where he's buried. Now, that sort of gives me a few chills to realize that he's there and he died with my uncle. And that's a part of the story that's amazing to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now,
you have a stone there.
I have a stone. This says D-Day. I have a very good friend, a high school classmate, former state trooper in West Virginia. His name is Kenneth Blake. Kenneth travels quite a bit now since he's been retired. And one day I get this in the mail. He was in Normandy last year, and he knew the story about my uncle. Mm-hmm. And he sent this rock that he picked up off the beach. He wrote on there, D-Day. Omaha Beach. Huh. So that's something very special, sits on my mantle to remind me.
Sort of gives you an idea of the character of the beaches themselves, too.
Yes.
And what these guys were running over. We think of a sandy, nice beach.
Right. Well,
with Angela's lemonade going by. It wasn't exactly like that on that day.
Well, I've thought many times, he was 26 years old. I'm sure he was very afraid. What did he really think when he hit that beach and all those bullets? And here's a young man who didn't have a family, never had a chance to watch TV, go to a movie, go to a football game. And he had all these guns aimed at him hitting that beach. And by only God's grace, he was able to hit the beach, move inland an hour and a half later, but still lost his life. And so one of these days, I'll meet him and I'll get a chance to talk to him about what it was like.
It was 81 years ago today, the anniversary of D-Day, the Normandy invasion, and the beginning of the end of World War II, as long as it was for that to come. Carson, it's good to have you back in the studio with us.
Good to be back. Hope to be back next year. I'll be 81 next year, so we'll see if we can make it. Oh, by the way, if I could, happy anniversary to my wife. 61 years we've been married. We were, I think, 3 years old when we got married. But today's our 61st anniversary of our wedding. And because of her, I think I've always become a better person, I hope.
So you got married on June 6th.
June 6th, yeah, D-Day.
Was that a deliberate thing?
No.
No?
No, it was just one of those things.
I'm sure you deliberately got married. But
Yeah, we did that, yes.
Carson, thanks so much.
Thank you.
It is the voice of Indiana County. It's WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, WCCSradio.com. We remember the men and the women who made D-Day happen because, this entire country was behind that war effort. It's Indiana in the morning on WCCS at 8:24.5. Coming up a couple of moments away from now, it'll be Boomer Sports. Then Matt is with us from the WCCS newsroom. In our next half hour, Sam Kenley from downtown Indiana. We talked to Johnny Moses from the Altoona Curve in our 9:45 segment this morning. Kevin Laser from PA Career Link. There's another U.S. Army veteran. He'll be visiting with us in our next hour as well. It's Indiana in the morning, always presented by First Commonwealth Bank. It's the voice of Indiana County, WCCS, 101.1 FM, AM 1160, and WCCSradio.com.